If it seems like it's been a while since you've seen me sitting at this table with a bunch of parts in front of me, that's because it certainly has been. There were a couple of delays this month while I waited for some parts to come in, and today, on May 28th, with 3 days to spare, I am finally ready to dig into May's entry into my monthly build series. Today we're going to be taking a crack at a $1,000 Ryzen 5 system and seeing what kind of performance you can expect at this very popular price point. So as I've already indicated, for the third month in a row now, we're going to be basing our system on a CPU from AMD's Ryzen lineup. For those of you unfamiliar with the Ryzen 7 and Ryzen 5 chips, they were introduced about 3 months ago to much fanfare, and for the most part, they've lived up to the hype. This Ryzen 5 1600 is a 6-core, 12-thread workhorse that can be yours for somewhere between $200 and $220. That is a huge bargain when compared to Intel's offerings at this same price tier, as the extra computing muscle allows your system to be ready to attack some heavy productivity tasks, in addition to the latest AAA titles. While the clock speeds and instructions per clock may not quite measure up to something like an i5 7600, which is in the same price category, the unlocked multiplier gives you some wiggle room for a nice overclock, and hopefully you won't be missing out on too many frames in your favorite games. Now, as far as the motherboard goes, originally I was talking with MSI about using their new B350 Gaming Pro Carbon board for this build. Unfortunately, their samples of the B350 board were out of stock, and they sent over this X370 board instead. As I had already configured the system price-wise to use the $135 B350 board, and the X370 version is almost identical in looks and functionality, we're going to go ahead with this build using this motherboard, but the price list you guys see down below in the video description will contain a link to the B350 Pro Carbon instead. The major differences between the two are an additional M.2 slot on the X370 to go along with support for SLI. They both support 3200 speed memory, have the same audio chipset, and the same array of onboard I/O and connection headers. They also both have Mystic lighting control for the RGB LEDs on the board in various locations. In the box from MSI, I also found this Gaming X version of the NVIDIA GTX 1060. Although the red shroud limits our color options somewhat, the twin Frozer cooler design has been one of the best on the market for some time, running cool and quiet. MSI also made some improvements to the cooler for this generation, including a full metal backplate and an anti-sag bracket that attaches to the end plate. The card comes pre-overclocked and can be set to run at up to 1594 MHz right out of the box without any tweaking. But of course, we'll be trying to push that number as high as we can while maintaining stability. Thank you very much to MSI for making this build a possibility. The memory in our system today will just be a standard 2400 speed kit of Corsair Vengeance LPX. It's certainly true that Ryzen, more than any other platform, benefits from higher speed memory. 3000 or 3200 speed kits provide a measurable increase in gaming performance when you can get them to work at their rated speeds. However, the recent NAND shortage and corresponding price bump for high-speed memory kits put a bit of a crunch on our available choices if we're working within a budget. I certainly wouldn't fault anyone for cutting back on some other part of the build here in order to use a faster memory setup. For storage, I chose to go with a single Kingston A400 480 gig SSD. 480 gigs is plenty to hold our operating system and a bunch of games or other applications initially, and you could always expand your storage later. In fact, this is likely the easiest part of a system to upgrade, as you don't need to swap anything out. You could just add as needed. Our power supply and storage were both provided by Thermaltake. I reviewed the View 31 RGB case in this video up here, and I think it will be the perfect fit for this system. It comes with tempered glass side panels, 3 RGB fans, and enough cable management space to allow for even the most complicated wiring jobs to be done neatly. The Toughpower Grand RGB 750 watt power supply might be slight overkill here, but at $80 or so and 80 plus gold rated with full modularity, it's actually one of the best values you could get. Special thanks goes out to Thermaltake for their cooperation on this build. So that's all the components we'll be working with today. And as of the filming of this video, the total price came out to just over $1,000, including a few mail-in rebates. Let's put it together and see how it performs. All right, guys, so the system is together. I think it looks great. We got a little bit of empty space over here because I took the drive cages out. But, I mean, everything came together exactly the way I wanted it to. But the problem is, when I went to hit the power button, I got nothing. But I did hear a little noise that I want to see if I can replicate and capture in my microphone. So I'm going to put the mic down right next to the power supply and hit the power button. All right, hitting the power button now. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a good thing. Alright guys, so it is time for some real talk about this build. I actually really enjoyed the actual build process. Everything went smoothly. It actually looked really good. This case is awesome to build in. I would definitely recommend it. But when it came time to power on the system, obviously I showed you guys what happened there. And that was just kind of the teeny tiny tip of the iceberg. I've basically spent all day yesterday and all day today trying to troubleshoot, fix, replace, diagnose. I could not figure out what was going on. It all started with the power supply, which you guys saw. Thermaltake has been advised of the situation, and they're going to take care of it. bad products happen. Defective products happen. DOA products happen. That happens with everything, not just power supplies, but motherboards, CPUs, graphics cards. It happens with everything. I just happen to get a bad one. I don't blame them in particular for this unit, but it kind of does make me look a little silly how I was talking about how this is a good value for the money, and it turns out to be a bad power supply. I mean, I guess I have a little egg on my face from that one, but it's not something that we could have ever predicted. And Thermaltake has, their products, especially recently, have gotten to be of significantly higher quality than they have been in the past. And I still recommend their stuff. But just so happens that I got a bad power supply. But that was the beginning. So what happened after that was I swapped out the power supply for, as you guys saw, a Corsair RM650X. This is a power supply that I know to be good. I've used it in multiple systems in the past, and I've never had any issues with it. So I hooked it up, powered it on, the lights came on in the system, the fans came on in the system, everything appeared to be working fine, except I couldn't get a post. And what I did get instead was a teeny tiny little LED post code that was saying that the CPU was bad. Yikes. Now this is the same Ryzen 5 1600 that I used in my review video, this one up here. So I know that the processor should be good. But now I'm thinking, did the bad power supply fry the processor? So I took the processor out, popped it in a Gigabyte board, tested it there, got the same error code. That processor is now in this box. It says bad on it. And I'm gonna try to figure out what to do with this. But this processor is no good. I don't know what happened. Like I said, it could be related to the power supply. I think more testing is in order. So what I did then was I happened to have another Ryzen 5 1600. So I swapped that in, powered the system on, got the same error code. Oh my God, what is going on? Talked to a couple of friends of mine, tried to get some ideas as far as what could have been happening. Decided that on a whim, I was just gonna try to swap out the memory. Now this kit of Corsair Vengeance LPX, I've had for maybe a year or so. I've used it in builds before on the channel. It's always been reliable for me. I've never had any problems with it. It's booted on both Intel and AMD systems. But apparently, it's not good anymore either. You know, at this point, I'm not sure if the power supply really went to town on some of my components, or if this was just kind of a weird coincidence. In any event, I swapped in a kit of G.Skill Ripjaws 4. Same speed memory, so performance should be just about the same. And lo and behold, with the new processor, the new RAM, and the new power supply, we got a boot. So now we could do some testing, and I've spent the last couple hours finishing up those benchmarks, which you guys just saw. Now, let me just say that I happen to be in a situation where I have access to some additional parts, some replacement parts, and this obviously is not a system that I'm building for myself for daily use. So having something go bad or go wrong is not the end of the world for me. If something like this were to happen to you guys, it would be pretty devastating, I'm sure. So I don't wish this upon anybody, but I am fortunate that I was able to get everything working, and we have a functional system that I was able to do those tests on. And the test results were awesome. I mean, this system is performing really well. This MSI Gaming X version of the 1060, I was able to push an overclock of an additional 175 megahertz on the core and 300 megahertz on the memory. And as a result, we got some really nice gaming scores that were right in line with what I was getting with an i5-7700K and the 1060 Founders Edition card that I have. So that seems like a really good result for this system, considering that the Ryzen 5 1600 is supposed to be slightly slower when it comes to gaming tasks. If it was keeping up with the 7700K, that is good news. Also, the temperatures of that card, in this case with really good airflow, were the max temperatures that I saw at 100% load while overclocked was 62 degrees Celsius. So that's phenomenal. The processor was also staying cool with just the Wraithspire cooler. It is overclocked to 3.7 gigahertz at 1.375 volts, and it was staying around 70 degrees Celsius. So I think the, openness of this case combined with some decent airflow, the included 140 millimeter fans from Thermaltake really helped the situation, and everything is staying really nice and cool inside, and it came out looking really good. So that's it, guys. We are all done with May's monthly build. Now we are creeping ever closer to 10,000 subscribers, and I know that I've talked about doing a giveaway at 10,000 for both my United States and international audience, and I've decided that it's going to be a full system giveaway. It's going to be something that's pretty similar to this, although there are going to be some other components, but it is going to be a Ryzen 5 based system, and I think it's something that you guys would hopefully love. So that's something that is coming up soon, and if you guys want to help me reach 10,000 subscribers, make sure you share this video with your friends and tell people to follow me on Twitter and do whatever else you guys got to do, because once we hit 10,000, that giveaway is going to go live, and you will see a video on it on my channel pretty soon. So if you like this video, toss a like on it down there, and thanks for watching. As always, I will see you in the next one.